Um, so after that, we get sort of the same thing a few months later, but a very comic version of it, Youth Revolt. We
Yeah.
have Rock and Roll High School comes along 2 or 3 months later. And I was thinking that first thing I thought about Rock and Roll High School was that it's definitely a parody of the, Youth and Revolt film, but it's not a parody in the sense that, say, Airplane is a parody.
Right.
Because, Airplanes says this is a parody of disaster films. They're the stupidest films ever made, and we're going to have every stupid thing that you ever find in a disaster film. Rock and Roll High School, even though it parodies the Youth Revolt film, its heart is also on the side of the kids, right? So
Yeah.
it has fun with it, and it sort of plays around with the absurd aspects of it. But it really is kind of an earnest youth and revolt film.
Well,
Like I
it's
think
kind of like the Ramones themselves, right?
the Ramones themselves. Very good point.
Like
Exactly.
they do. The Ramones do have that irony that people used to, charge them with, like,
Yeah.
songs about axe murderers and all that. But there's also a very heartfelt,
You're
component to
absolutely
what they do. So
yeah, you're absolutely right. It's the perfect film for the Ramones. It's a parody, but it's earnest about what it's parodying. The cast I was thinking is just assembled from all this, it's like a cultural
yeah,
mishmash, a cultural detritus. I wrote, if I'm even saying that correctly. You've got Mary Warrenoff and Paul Bartel from Warhol. You've got Dick Miller from Roger Corman's films. I can't even remember who he plays in Rockwell High School,
I think
but
he's
he's
the
someone.
cop. I think he's the cop. He's not in it that much, actually.
Okay. You've got not Ron Howard, but Ron Howard's younger brother, Clint Howard.
Oh, okay.
You've got Vince Van. I had to check. Eight is
Yeah,
enough. It's already on the air. So Dick Van Patten's son, Vince Van Patten,
Vince. Yeah.
and then of course, leading the way, you've got PJ Souls, who is already kind of well known for Carrie and Halloween.
Mhm.
So it just takes, like, if you're going to make this type of film, Alan Arkush, I think is his name,
Yeah.
uh, just grabs all the perfect kind of cast.
Mhm.
Um, and he went on to make a film I still haven't seen, although I made some effort to track down the Ramones song on the soundtrack, Chop Suey. Get Crazy. Have you ever seen Get Crazy?
No.
Okay, I think it's about roadies, I think, and he made it about 10 years later.
Okay.
And he went on to make one or two other things of note. I think he came out of the Corman stable too. Um, so I don't know how much we have to say. I'm sure anybody that ever does watch this has seen Rock and Roll High School. It's just the Ramones, PJ Souls, and they've got this cartoonish faculty with Mary Warnock plays Miss Togar, the principal, and Paul Bartel plays, he's a teacher at the school, correct?
Is he the classical teacher?
Yeah, something like that.
He's
And
hilarious, actually.
Yeah, PJ Souls, she's Riff Randall, our number one fan. She loves the
Yeah.
Ramones. Um, Vince Van Patten is a straight arrow kind of jock
Yeah.
guy.
Yeah.
And
And you've got those two like hall prefects. I don't know who they
the
I don't
hall
know who they are,
prefects are
but
they're hilarious.
yeah,
The
yeah.
other two music, besides the one I chose, which we'll talk about in a second, the other two musical highlights I think are obviously Joey singing "I Want You Around" and
That's great.
DJ Souls' dream sequence. Sorry, I got all this weird stuff coming up. And I think the other one is the two prefects going around with "Comeback Jonies" on the soundtrack, right?
Oh, I
And
didn't
they're
even catch
bombing
that actually.
around. Yeah, I'm pretty sure Devo's "Comeback Joni," and they're bombing. They have those little carts they drive.
Yeah, oh
And
yeah, yeah. That's great.
they're hilarious, those two guys.
I know.
I wish I should
I
have.
know there's some lines that are so quotable and I just can't think of them,
Well,
but
one of the best is where Miss Togar says, "Do your parents know you're remote?"
yeah.
And yeah, there's all sorts of great stuff in it. So the one I picked, which to me, it's easily the best in the film, as great as "I Want You Around" is. It's such a surreal scene. They're lined up the way we used to, not punching into a computer terminal, or now I think it's even weirder. You would actually line up to get tickets to a show.
Yeah.
So the tickets for the Ramones go on sale. Now, I thought she won tickets over the air. Why would she be? Didn't she win tickets over the air?
Uh,
Or am I confusing it with another film? I might be
I
confusing
don't
it
think
with,
so, but I'll be honest with you. When I had it on tonight, it was kind of as much in the background as anything else while I was
yeah,
doing
I
stuff.
might be
So,
confusing it with Detroit Rock City where they win tickets to
okay,
the Yes Over the Air. Anyway, she's lined up. She's first in line to get Ramones tickets. She's fighting with this other, huge Ramones fan, so they can each be first in line. And suddenly the Ramones just kind of out of nowhere, they're in a car and they're
great.
driving to the venue. And I think it starts with a shot of the license plate, which is
Yeah.
Gabba Gabba Day. Um, it's totally absurd. They're in the car. They can't possibly be amped up. I got another mission. Why is it dude asking me this, Scott? I'm supposed to send you a request to
Just
record.
just ignore it, probably.
I'm just going to close it. Okay. Um, and they're not amped up because how can they be amped up? But the song's playing full
Oh
blast.
yeah,
Marky's got one cymbal in the
sounds
car.
great. Yeah.
Sounds great. I think it's the best song. By the way, Road to Ruin came out in September of '78, so that's kind of the guiding album for
First
this.
album I ever heard by them, by the way. So
Okay, yeah, I think that there was a real. This is before rock and roll, before sorry, end of the century.
yep.
But obviously, Sire's got their mind on kind of getting the crossover. They had first they had Sheen as a punk rocker trying to get that, and it did make the top 100.
Mhm.
Road to Ruin again. They have the acoustic ballad.
Yeah.
Now they have the film and they redo Rock and Roll High School. They make it probably, add some instrumentation to make it more. And they're really trying to
Oh yeah.
make the Ramones into a top, you know, not necessarily a top 10 band, but get them on the top
Well,
40.
and they treat them. That's part of the humor in the movie is they treat them like they're the most like popular band of the moment, right? Like
Oh
they're
yeah, you're
it's
right. That's
great. I
what's
mean,
great about it. They arrive at the venue, everybody's lined up and they're going,
yeah,
and I love that song so much. They're doing the
so
thrusting
great.
with the wait now.
Yeah.
And Riff Randall and PJ Souls and the other women are first in line. Somebody posted, or I think I told you this. I read somebody who said Billy Altman. I think Billy Altman and maybe Legs McNeil. They're part of that lineup.
Oh, I wonder if Billy Altman, there was like in the movie, you mean?
Yeah, could have even been you that told me that. Billy Altman's in
Dude,
that line.
who I think one of those guys might be? Like there was a guy who like was the promoter of the show or something, and or like the announcer at the concert. Is that what you mean? Like someone was in the cat, one of those guys was in the cast?
No, I'm talking about the camera pans as the Ramones are walking up, doing their wait
Right.
now, and people in the lineup are going crazy.
Oh,
Two of the
they're in
people
that. Okay, okay.
Yeah, two of the people in the lineup. I think one of them is Billy Altman,
Billy,
and I think
that's
someone
great.
else,
Legs McNeil.
Lakes McNeil, might be another one. Yeah, they just
That
got
would
it,
make sense. Yeah,
which wouldn't have been difficult. And
that's hilarious.
as you say, it's like it's Ramones mania, right? They're the most popular band in the world. I mean,
Yeah.
the venue they're playing at. I don't know how large it was, and I can't even remember. This is where I probably should have watched it. Do we see some of the actual show?
Yeah, yeah, you do. It's
Yeah, you
almost
see the last
it's a bit like
about
Hard
10,
Day's Night in that way, right? Like
the mini
towards the
concert
end,
at the end,
they
right?
do like about four songs
That's
actually.
right.
So,
And Miss Togar and Paul Bartel, they show up, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Which is sort of like School of Rock too. I guess School
yeah,
of Rock might be a nod to Rock and Roll High School.
yeah.
Um, so I wish I'd watched it again. I remember whenever I do watch it, I've probably seen it 4 or 5 times. It always holds up well. It's always
Yeah,
funny.
yeah.
They're
I
just
I
so really
thought
long.
I thought one of the outstanding musical scenes, and I'd forgotten just how good it was Sheena at the start, actually. I just forgot like how
Okay.
energetic it was. And it just like when I watched it tonight, I thought, man, like this, because I think it shows up in the first like 10 minutes. Like they have a little prelude and then Sheena comes on. And it's just like all the kids dancing around the school, and they've got
I
cheerleaders and
do. I
football
remember that.
players.
Yes.
And I
Yeah.
remember tonight I was thinking, like, man, like it's kind of unbelievable that the
Are they? Is
Ramones
it like a
weren't
pep
actually the
rally?
biggest band at the time, because it just sounds so good. Like it's
Is
just
it a pep
perfect.
rally for a football game that's coming up or
I
something?
think that might be later in the movie. I think they
Oh,
have a scene with that as well. I don't know. I mean, maybe
yeah.
they've sort of, they're kind of getting a bit confused in my mind, but there is at least one football player dancing around. I think some of the cheerleaders, but just
Hmm.
the energy. I mean, I thought that was actually maybe the best part of the movie was the way they staged, because there's a few of them where they do stage the big scenes with all the kids dancing to the Ramones and stuff. And I thought, man, this is like really well filmed, just perfectly choreographed. And the way they do sort of bring in everyone from the high schools taking part in it. I thought, it's that whole like this is a slice of American life circa 1979. I thought that was really brilliantly done. So
Do you remember that scene? Is Nick Lowe's "So It Goes" somewhere in the film or
I
"Cruel
know
to
it's
Be"?
on the soundtrack, but I didn't hear it. You know what
Okay.
song is really interesting though in the soundtrack is the most ambient song from Another Green World, and it's used like two or three times. It's bizarre. It's
Wow.
called Spirits Drifting, and I remember seeing it on the soundtrack. I'm like, that can't actually be in the movie. But tonight I
That's
noticed it. I'm
incredible.
like, oh wow, like it's Spirits Drifting. And when it's used as it's towards the end, again, I was half watching it. I didn't catch the full context, but they keep kind of going back and forth between the principal and some of the action outside. And the principal's like in her office, I think, with the two hall monitors, and it's really dark. Like they're planning something, and it's really dark. It's almost filmed like Brando in The Godfather or something. Like the shutters are down, and it's just and they every time they go back to them, they're playing this Eno song, "Spirits Drifting." It's just so bizarre. And I
We're
did look
under
it
a
up, and
minute.
it's like, yeah, it's on there. So
We're
pretty
under a
great.
minute. I think we're gonna have to come back in 10 minutes. Okay.